Hey kids, you trying to get into Segment City? Well, you really shouldn't, because Segment City is a mature podcast, and listener discretion is advised. I'm just trying to look at... I know I'm in an alleyway. I know how I look, but I got some fireworks for you kids. I got snakes and I got sparklers. That's all I got. Oh, don't give me that.
Here by myself.
You're here by yourself? Nope. I'm here by myself. We're doing a video call. This is the first time we've ever done this.
Makes me uncomfortable that you're on my screen.
It feels weird.
Weird, man.
Your camera's blurry. My camera's way too... It makes me look like a ghost because I'm way too bloom. I don't know what to do about it.
It's also like positioned kind of above your head, so I'm kind of looking down at you.
Yeah, let's just do this.
Yeah, you got your hot girl cam.
I just adjusted
Looks like
it.
You're going to post some
oh my God.
pics on there. Wow.
Oh, some feet pics? Oh, some saucy.
I didn't say it.
Did you say feet pics?
Yes, I did. I said it.
Ooh, saucy boy. We're saucy here on Segmented City, a podcast in which Theo and I come up with segments each week. Some are new, some are reoccurring, and we try to make each other laugh. We try to make you laugh. We have a good time.
Yeah, we do.
And this week is in bad times. We took a little bit of a break because Theo's mic was at my place, and we didn't know how to get it to him.
I was sort of like...
And also, we felt
I was
weird.
sort of like, well, maybe this will be over soonish. We can just take a short break. Turns out, not a short time. It's just going to...
No, and then I was like...
we should just figure this out remotely, because we don't know when we're going to be coming back.
Yeah, I got to put out that good content for everybody, and when everybody's at home. Do people consume more podcasts when they're in quarantine or
less,
fewer?
Because I listen to them on my commute, and I have not been commuting. So I've been consuming less podcasts, more television.
Yes. Well, we'll be getting to that. Podcasts, there are certain ones that I haven't been. I've been getting into running a lot because I don't have exercise machines, but I'm still exercising a lot. But then I'll also do a thing where I follow it up by eating a pizza. So I'm not really killing it.
It's called reverse carbo loading. It's where you actually eat the carbs after your run, and you gain less power.
Yes. So I'm listening to podcasts about like the history of werewolves and Satanism in the government, which I thought was going to be a fun little jaunt. And then, spoilers, pedophilia. There's a lot of pedophilia. And so that made me run from reality. So it kind of helps with the run.
I did not like that spoiler.
That was a bad spoiler. It actually made me feel bad for a very long time afterwards.
Lord.
So that's, but running makes me feel good. And so I've been getting into that. But that's the opposite of what I think our first segment's going to be. So what are we doing in quarantine? What media are we consuming? Everybody's binging everything.
A lot of people are binging a lot
Theo,
of
what are
things.
you binging?
A lot of binging. Let's see. What have I been...
Let's categorize these, because I put them into categories just so we aren't like going everywhere with it.
With your first question.
Have you watched any movies lately?
I have watched one movie relatively recently. It was Starship Troopers.
Oh, actually, let's talk about this, because we chatted briefly in text.
Yes, I texted you that I had watched it in my short review. I thought it was a pretty good one. Like, let's see.
I was kind of looking forward to doing a Movie Boys with you about the movie, because I think I would have at first just been like, when we did the before thing, been like, it's about fascism. You'll get a lot more out of this if you go into it with that mindset. I picked up pretty quickly
that it was like, the cult of like the military. Like they make that pretty clear from the beginning, where like going to the army is a big deal and everybody's going to do it. All the cool kids are going to the army, and
you become a citizen.
Right, exactly. And like, so one person's like, I want to have kids. And I heard that if you go and do time in the military, it's a lot easier to get a permit to have kids. And I'm like, yep, totalitarian government. Yep, I get it. I liked that it was like a fun little, it was kind of a mindless plot. It was like, okay, there are bad aliens. Go kill the bad aliens. And it was more about like the character development and like...
it's more about, it's kind of, because if you think about it, it's especially with stuff that happens later in the plot. We're just getting into spoilers about Starship Troopers because it came out in the 90s. I don't care.
But if you had told me, if you had said I don't care about spoilers, it came out in the 90s. If you said that to me like a week and a half ago, I would have been like, no, wait, I don't want you to spoil.
I need to spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, then maybe jump ahead a little bit. But I think it's pretty clear that we are the aggressors, like humans are the aggressors, and it's very like 1984 of we've always been at wars with the bugs. In terms of like, and they find like an encampment of settlers who are like Mormon for some reason, and they and it's like, oh, we've been going onto their land and stealing their stuff, and they're just being territorial animals that we're just fighting, and it's all just to create the war machine that fascism lives off of.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty clear, also, especially like at the end when they capture the brain bug, and they're like just blatantly doing experiments on it, and it's like it's not trying to do anything. They're like, it's afraid, and they're like, yeah.
And it also like looks chubby and kind of cute.
It looks totally harmless. It just has a bunch of eyes.
But then again, it does suck the brains out of a man.
Smart.
He's a smart bug. But it's like I like that every adult in the movie is horribly disfigured. That's like a fun little like there's parts of the movie that I think people like on rewatch of like all the adults are either missing arms or legs or look like they have chemical burns. And then there's like this cycle of like everybody's up to replace each other.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's a machine, and it's a weird because I described this movie to Annie as it's tricks you into liking fascists with its like 90210 kind of stuff, because all the characters you kind of feel for in the beginning, especially, and then by the end you expect them to have like an arc of like, oh, they're gonna get over, like they're going to figure out how to stop this war machine or whatever, and then they just become a cog in it. Like, it doesn't have a happy ending in a traditional sense, but, like, you as the audience, when they're like, it's afraid, and you're like, yeah! And you're just kind of like, yeah, wait! Why does this not feel good? So, because they're humans, that you're just like,
I mean, they're relatable, because they're human, and the other ones are bugs, and we gotta squash the bugs. They look scary. Yeah.
But it's really just, like, it kind of reminds me of Warhammer 40K, which is a thing I sometimes read about, and I'm like, it's basically everybody is to the max. Like, you know how in Star Wars and stuff they're like
tropey. Like everyone just plays a role.
But in like Warhammer 40K, every faction is just terrible, and the humanity faction is like fascist, like terrible, but it's like they're the only humanity left. Like they're just people in it, but they'll like also nuke worlds just for nothing.
Right.
And stuff. It's like terrible hell world that they try to put this like veneer in Starship Troopers of 90210 cheesiness that kind of gets you into it. But then like once you get past that surface, and like I feel like they just don't wink at you enough
in Starship Troopers
in the movie.
Oh no, they definitely do. I mean they have those cutaways to like the propaganda thing that's like the more would you like to know more? Like that's very much like, hey audience, you're getting that this is like not good, right? Like, this was very clearly calling out, like, what is happening here is not okay.
I feel like for most audiences, though, for what we think of as average popcorn eating crunch, like, this is just a fun action movie. I think that's what they would say.
I mean, I think some people, I could see how people could miss the point, but anybody who's, like, aware of historical context could probably see it. When Neil Patrick Harris walks in wearing, like, a literal Nazi uniform, like, cool,
that's, like, very on the nose. But I feel like that's, like, one of the few things that's, like, very on the nose, where you're just like, yes, this is absolutely...
Right.
He's wearing an SS uniform.
Right.
Most of the stuff, like, especially with the main characters, you kind of get into it focuses a lot on the love triangle.
Yeah.
And kind of, like, because there's, like, characters that go for each other and stuff, but I feel like I do like them. I like discussing the movie more than I like watching the movie, because it is very, like, when you watch it, you're like, this is an action movie. Right. And they're going to get killed by bugs and stuff.
A lot of people die. Like, a lot of the characters die.
Oh, yeah. I thought they were just going to kill Johnny Rico. But then they did the weird thing where they're just like, no, he's alive, and he's just in this weird, like, Luke in Empire Strikes Back,
just,
too,
like,
where he's just like... And they're like, technically you're dead. And I'm like, is he going to be like Spec Ops now? And then he wasn't. He was just like a normal trooper again. And I'm like, okay, that didn't go anywhere. Right. But any other movies that you watched?
That's the only one I've been mostly watching TV, to be honest. What about you? What have you been watching?
Yeah. I watched Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol because that's a fourth in the movie. I watched the first 3 Mission Impossibles. Didn't get to the last 3 because I heard Fallout is like great.
I'm surprised that you care about Mission Impossible. I couldn't give 2 shits about Mission Impossible.
I don't really. I played Animal Crossing the entire time.
You were like, I want some background noise.
I was like half in it, half out of it. Like it's mostly seeing Tom Cruise do fun stunts. Like that's the whole movie, and then like Simon Pegg doing some quips, but like they don't give him enough leeway to be Simon Pegg.
I just can't take action movies that take themselves so seriously anymore. Like anything that's not winking at the audience about how ludicrous this whole like situation is just I just can't get over it.
The technology is also very stupid because there's a point where they have like a magnet on a rolly thing that looks like the Mars rover, and Jeremy Renner has to like jump down a whole like few stories, and they're like, yeah, I'll catch you because you're going to be wearing this metal jacket. And I'm like, excuse me, no.
No.
Excuse me. I don't think that's how anything works. And they're always just jumping into stuff and their plans always fall apart. I like the first Mission Impossible a lot. I think it's a neat. Did you know it was based on a TV show?
No, I had no idea.
I didn't know that for a very long time.
I'm just learning that now.
It's like Mission Impossible. It was like if James Bond was a show. Of just like every week they did a mission. And I'm like oh, that's kind of neat for a show.
Like a monster of the week. Mission of the week.
Yeah, but it's a heist of the week.
There is a show that keeps being advertised to me on, I think it's Netflix, called Money Heist. And I'm sorry, Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
But if you call your show Money Heist, I can't fucking watch it because you put so little effort into the title of the show. I'm really sorry.
I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Hey, Netflix... I find, I mean,
all right,
we'll
boys.
Get to the shows
I've got a heist to put on the table. We need a couple of guys. Well, what are we going to steal? Diamonds? Money. Okay, well, should we give us a cool operation nickname? No, it's just going to be the money heist.
We're the money boys. We just want the money. Give us the money now.
God.
I've seen stuff. I'm like, this looks silly.
I shan't.
I can't deal with it. And then Annie and I, because she's in a different place from me, time zone. And we aren't able to see each other. She's in not in a different time zone. She's just separate from me. So we've been having to watch shows on Netflix by basically doing 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, did you start? Did it? Bum bum. Did you get the Netflix? Oh, no, you didn't. Okay, let me go back. Let's do that again. 3, 2,
Laura
1.
and I have been doing the same.
Okay, we're good. And we watched The Mask of Zorro, which came out in 1998 or something like that. And it has Antonio Banderas.
First question, does it hold up?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's very fun. It's a fun little like action movie because it's about this new Zorro, because old Zorro is played by Anthony Hopkins, who is not even trying to do a Mexican accent, which I'm happy with. He's just the most British man in rural Mexico. In like the 1800s
yes,
or whatever.
I was born here in this town of Guadalupe.
You will not become Zorro this way. You shall train to become Zorro. And it's just so it's him. He has an action sequence as Zorro, which they kind of like. They're like, okay, we're gonna put him on wires, and he's gonna flip around and do stuff. But it's still just Anthony Hopkins, and they just darkened his hair and his mustache a little bit, and then. His baby daughter gets kidnapped by an evil guy, and he gets sent to jail. And then Antonio Banderas is a criminal guy, and then he finds him after original Zorro breaks out, and then they're going after evil guy who stole daughter, who is now hot and played by Catherine Zeta-Jones, which I didn't know. She's Welsh, which. I wouldn't, because she plays like I feel like in a lot of roles she plays Hispanic.
So you wouldn't look at her and be like, oh, she's Welsh.
Yeah, I'm like, she doesn't even have any, because have you heard a Welsh accent?
Yeah.
It's a little bit crazy. it's a little bit of a crazy accent. Sorry to anyone from Wales. But
I'm going to break it to you. We don't have any listeners in Wales.
Shit, dude. We don't have any listeners at all.
Wales is really low.
is very bad, but it's a good movie. And then like there's one point that Annie and I just like latched onto as just like the weirdest moment in the whole movie, where there's an American guy who's like a general kind of dude, and he's working for the evil guy, and he early in the movie caught his Antonio Banderas' brother, and he offered him like some wine because he was in disguise, and he's like, here's some wine. And then he's like, he sips it, and in the jar of the wine is his brother's head. And we're just like, did he just feed him brother juice? Did he just give him some brother juice? And then Antonio Banderas like takes it.
I'm making a shrunken head. Don't look.
This is gonna be a science project. Pickling your brother's head. And he's like, is this project. Your brother?
It's got a nice mahogany flavor. Full body.
It's got some. Oh, is this some brother tones? It says some warm brother tones. Some. Boom! You got him. You did the thing.
That's it.
And that was the only movies I watched, but that's not the important. I feel like we both have been doing shows and games, so let's go into shows. What shows?
I've been watching a lot of Community. That you recently put it on Netflix. It's it's a really good show. I mean, I don't have a lot to say for it. It's definitely comfort food. It's what I want right now, where I can just turn it on and have a couple of good laughs, and it fits into 20 minutes, and it like nicely resolves itself. It's just comfort food.
Yeah. It's in that like late 2000s, early 2010 period where everyone had a sitcom, like when The Office, like they're all very similar in my mind. There's Community, there's The Office, there's Parks and Rec.
I would say Community and Parks and Rec are more similar. I think The Office stands alone in terms of like its genre of humor. I mean, a lot of things copied it, but nothing quite gets its like dry tone quite as well. At least the early Office. I mean, Community is like, I think in a cut above a lot of like the shows where like everybody gets a comedy, in that like people really latched onto it, and it has really good, well-written humor. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton to say for it. We don't have to dwell on talking about Community because it's just like there's not much to talk about there, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I probably need to keep up with Parks and Rec, but that was Annie and my like comfort food on Wednesday nights or whatever.
Yeah, I would say at the first couple of seasons there is some humor that I'm like, ooh, this doesn't age well. Like they just like say like, you're gay, and that's the whole joke. Like that's the entire joke, and I'm like, I guess we're just past that as like a culture. Great, I'm glad we're past that, because it's like I don't find like that's not funny. Like you need more to the joke.
That was just 2000s humor when people called each other retarded and stuff, and you're just like,
it's no longer good.
No longer good. My comfort food is Star Trek: The Next Generation.
TNT, okay.
One of the greatest shows that's ever been made, and I love it. In almost every episode, I say out loud, "Oh my god, I love this show! It's nerd. So good! It's so good!" Because I'm a nerd, and also because it has like all the characters get their thing. Like they all have their like. Every character will get an episode eventually. Like I'm like, oh, this is a Data episode. I love this. This is so good. And you get a little character, and then there's also like they just have fun problems. Like every episode is its own like issue that will eventually get resolved usually. And then there's like bigger, broader things, and there's character development for the guys, and like it's just such a nice world because everybody works together and everybody is just so nice to each other and everybody's good at their job. And like we'll just
it's so
it's
far
just,
from
like,
the real world where everyone is mean and everyone is incompetent.
And then like Picard's just like, we have no use for wealth and in our we got rid of wealth and need, and we have a utopia society, and we're not on a warship, we're on a exploration ship, and we just want to meet new species and do. And I'm like, yes, Picard, I want this. This is the future I want, but this is not the future we're getting. This is Picard. We're so far. And we're just like, yes, this is. In 400 years, we'll be across the stars, and we'll have the Federation. And I'm just like, oh, Picard. If only we could, my boy. And then it's just so like every episode I'll get something, because I recently watched one that was like, I like the episodes where it's less advanced civilizations looking at the Federation kind of, because there's one where they were about like the civilization was about to get warp capabilities, and that's when they do first contact. And so they're just like, hey, and they were like very human, and Riker for some reason got injured and was in a medical facility, and Picard was just like, hey, so we need our dude. Also, sorry that we're spying on you guys, but also like we have to figure out that if you guys are chill or not. And then they're just like, yeah, but you can see it from our perspective. And then I thought it from both the perspectives, like if aliens came to us now and were like, hey, so you want to be part of our Federation of Planets? Also, we were spying on you for a bit. I'd be like,
I feel bad.
And then, but then they try to kill Riker, and Riker's like, I need to escape. And this one lab technician lady's like, I can help you escape if we bang, because that's my kink. And I'm just like,
God, okay. All right.
And Riker's just like, okay, because that's how he gets it. Because that's Riker's thing. He's basically like a D&D bard. He just fucks everyone. It's great. I love that show. Anyway, what other shows you've been watching?
I've been watching some of the newest season of Terrace House. Are you aware of Terrace House?
Oh, I know of Terrace House. I want to watch it, but I feel like I need to watch it with my girlfriend. Or maybe she's already. I forget if she's already seen it.
So the newest season
feels like comfort.
Is produced by Netflix, and it was started in 2019 and slated to go through the end of this summer through the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, which are no longer happening. Like, it was slated to be in Tokyo during the time of the Olympics and just like be happening. I don't know what's happening with it now. They probably have sent everybody home. I would imagine. I don't know. But I mean, for people who are unaware, it's a Japanese reality TV show about six like young people between the ages of like 20 and 30. And there are 3 guys and 3 girls. And basically the whole plot of the show is that they just live in a house together and are roommates. And there's like no ulterior motives and no producers like telling them to produce drama. It's like a lot of people try to get on the show because they want to like meet somebody. But while they're there, they still have to like go and work their jobs. Like they still are employed. But like on the side, they'll like make little dates and cameras will like follow them around going and doing like their cute little dates in Japan. And part of the premise and the appeal of the show is that Japanese culture is much more respectful and reserved. And so like these young people are not constantly hooking up. They are just very polite and conscientious of one another. And it's a totally different look into like human interaction.
The next generation for you is you being like, I've heard that it's like Big Brother, but instead of like, do you fuck Stacy? It's just like, hello. So I think we're both going after Stacy's heart, and I'd really love to talk about this and really work this out. And they go, oh yes, of course, I'd love to. And I'm just like,
there's some drama, but it's mostly like these 2 people are slated to have a very calm, rational discussion with one another, and you can see it coming and be like, ooh, this discussion is going to be so rational and juicy.
This is going to be a very good discussion. They're both going to grow as
people from this interaction.
This is going to be a very good discussion, and I'm looking forward to it.
And there's a funny thing where there's this sort of like this panel of people who they'll cut away to every once in a while who are watching the episode, and they'll be like commentators.
That's a very Japanese
and they'll
thing.
Be like, they'll just speculate so wildly. They're like, this guy has a very cool attitude, and it seems like his his stock is definitely on the rise. It was going down before, but now it seems like a lot of the girls are very interested in him. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens next.
He's a cool dude with attitude.
He's got
he
quite
could be a good
nice
Power
style.
Ranger.
And then there's this one guy.
He has a good style.
There's a guy on the panel who always roots against the cool musicians because he's like, they always get the girls, and he's like, I can't wait to see him tumble and burn.
I root for the underdogs.
And they always just make fun of him because they're like, what do you have against these guys? And he's like, I was never cool,
they gave me
and
wedgies.
You will never be cool and get girls.
I like this weird antagonist who's just a judge. She's just like from far away, like, I hate you.
And then mixed in are like the very like, Japanese language noises that they make, like, yeah, like that. And it's it just hits all the right spots for me right now.
I think I will probably watch it because my mother watches Real Housewives of
This is
wherever,
as far from that as you can
bullshit
get.
county.
You would think that we are like an alien species to them if you watch side by side.
Oh yeah, it just feels so overproduced, and I would really like a show where it's just like not all that.
Right.
I don't know. On the total opposite end of that spectrum, I watched the first 2 episodes of The Boys.
The Amazon
original, which people told me to watch, and it just feels mean-spirited. it's a very like I have to like put myself in the mood to watch it. It's a very like, because in the first episode 2 terrible things happen. Like, I don't know, one of the things is like got spoiled for me, and I'm not sure if I want to spoil it for other people because it's like kind of recent. I mean, in like the first 10 minutes, let's just say somebody gets converted into just splatter.
Okay. So there's a pretty strong statement of like the intentions of the show.
I like the idea behind the show where it's basically like superheroes are a brand, and it's like they're like the ultimate celebrities,
right?
And they can get away with anything. And then it's like the boys who are like regular dudes, or like some of them are criminals, are trying to get back at them.
Okay.
And it really like enjoys being so mean and like gross out, that to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I kind of like it, but it's also like, it's weird.
Does it just feel like kind of gratuitous, both in like tone and in like gore?
It really like languishes in it. It's like, ooh, yeah, ooh, you're uncomfortable. Let me just rub this on myself. This feels great. What do you feel about this?
Feel about this?
Feels great. How do you feel? Oh, are you grossed out? I like that you're grossed out. But,
feels bad.
And then I've been watching Westworld season 3, which has been good. I like it.
Cool. I mean,
and that's my review.
How did you feel about season 2? I don't remember where you landed on that.
I love season 1.
No, season 1 is incredible.
I watched it with. Yeah. Here's my advice to anyone who hasn't seen Westworld: watch Westworld season 1. Season 2, right now, is not worth it on its own.
Okay.
Because season 1 ends at a perfect place,
right?
And it's like, oh, you can just leave it and it's fine.
Right.
Season 2 kind of like, it's good. It's just not great. It's like a sophomore slump kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sophomore album. And then season 3 has been picking it up. And I'm like, I like the outside world and the world building that they're doing, and kind of like the characters' motivations are all like very interesting, and I enjoy watching it week to week.
Yeah.
It has a nice vibe.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. For me, so season 1, agree, super good. And season 2, I think because season 1 was so good, season 2 like hurt by like how it didn't really, it didn't fulfill the promise. And
it's a sophomore album.
It just feels to me like, the part of Westworld that I was most interested in were the stories happening within Westworld. And it seems like they're getting farther and farther away from that. It's like, I don't think I care about what they're saying anymore. Maybe it's just a personal preference.
I think that Anthony Hopkins was also such a like fucking great actor and such a presence in the show that like in season 2, he is less in it. And like, so he's just not, he doesn't carry as much of it. So, what else have you been watching?
The last thing I've been watching, which I mentioned, I think maybe briefly to you. So Warner Brothers recently just like handed us a pass to like all of their content produced ever, which is like a fucking ton of content. It's incredible.
They've been doing stuff forever.
I was scrolling around and they have like a whole animated section of like the stuff they produced. And I was like, oh, this is a funny, good goof. It's Mike Tyson Mysteries. And I was like,
oh yeah, you sent me a Snapchat.
I was like, hey, as a good goof, like let's watch this. I knew nothing about the show. I thought it was like a kid's show. I thought it was like akin to Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, it's supposed to look like it. It's supposed to look. I
watched a couple of episodes. This show is incredibly good. Like Mike Tyson Mysteries has no right being as good as it is. It's really well written. It's really hilarious, and Mike Tyson just making fun of himself in a cartoon form is adorable and hilarious. I
think it's one of those things that nobody has expectations for.
Oh yeah, I had no expectations going in. I started like a random episode and saw the intro. I encourage everybody to go watch the intro, just like the intro montage that they do. That's like, it's like Saturday morning cartoon like opening.
Classic.
It's like so hilarious. It's just like Mike Tyson punching like a dinosaur and riding on the back of like a pterodactyl. And then like he has a friend who's a talking pigeon who's like really funny. And they've got their party is consisted of Mike Tyson, a talking pigeon, like his adopted Asian daughter, and a ghost. And that's their like adventuring crew. And it's like every episode is just hilarious. There's an episode where he falls into a conspiracy because he keeps running over astronauts, like hitting them with his car, like over and over. And he convinces himself that he has a government implanted chip in his brain, then the government is trying to make him kill astronauts. So he ends up going to the moon and getting in the like the lunar rover car and running over an astronaut on the moon. And then
he's like curses.
And then every time he runs someone over, he calls his insurance agent. And his insurance agent just has a guy. And his insurance agent always like, would you mind taking time to fill out a short customer satisfaction survey? And he's like, sure, I got time. And he's like standing on the moon. Oh my god, it's too good. There's just so many goofy plots. I recommend Mike Tyson Mysteries to everybody.
I'll check it out. Because I haven't heard a lot from it. I still need to watch Rick and Morty season 3. I haven't. Everybody says it's really good.
Season 4. This is the most recent.
Season 4. Yeah.
It's only like 5
I'm so lost
right
in
now,
it that I. Yeah, I know I could like easily get through it, but. Speaking of things that are easy to get through / bingeable, I watched Tiger King.
Oh, yeah.
And it's everything that everybody says. It's a flawed documentary. It's because Annie she's watched every single documentary on Netflix, is what she says. And she said in terms
There's so many, like, isn't fucking like
she's watched a lot. She's like, yeah, did you know, I watched one that was a PBS thing about the history of knitting. There's a lot of good history in knitting. And I'm just like, Annie,
I'm never
you're
telling
going
Laura
too far.
About this. Laura, don't listen.
And she's like, in terms of from the scale of like Ken Burns, Vietnam to Fast Food Nation or like Super Size Me or whatever, it's a little more Super Size Me. It's like more entertainment than it is like actual documentary. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those shows where everybody is terrible. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of like looking at these characters and being like, it's terrible. And I think in the show, at the end, they kind of have a message of like, yeah, I mean, all these people are terrible and stuff, but also they're ruining these tigers' lives. Right. And we should also, like, if everybody in this thing that are supposed to be helping tigers actually just put their money towards tigers, then there would be more tigers in the wild. Mm-hmm. And I feel like everybody's ignoring that right now. Like, everybody who watches it isn't like, oh, we should help these tigers. They're saying, like, fuck Carol Baskins, which I'm like, that's not the point. I mean, they did devote an entire episode to the fact, like, the question of, did this character, Carol Baskins, murder her husband? Mm-hmm. Which, to me, is, like, a very, like, 50-50. I don't think she necessarily did. Because they didn't give you all the facts. They just kind of like glance over shit.
Yeah, I read some stuff after the fact that it was like the credibility of this show is like very questionable because they were choosy with what the facts that they presented. Like they were presenting more for an interesting story than to paint the full picture.
They like way late in the show were like, did you know that Joe Exotic and all these people did drugs and meth? And I'm like, oh really? Because one of his husbands has literally 3 teeth. I couldn't figure that out. Like, but they're like, oh yeah, we had to cut a lot of the drug use, and I'm like, people are really like Joe Exotic.
No,
that's another takeaway. People hate Carol Baskins, and people love Joe Exotic. And I'm like, the whole point is that Joe Exotic is a terrible person, and he did a murder for hire thing. It doesn't matter what Carol Baskins did. You can't just
they're both bad people, and they're not just like. It's funny to, because when you watch it, they're like, oh, these are funny characters, and you're like, no, these are very much real people. You know, this is actually how they live.
I've met people that are similar to some of them. I think some of the worst people, there's this other guy named like Doc something, and he's like a cult leader basically. And he just has a harem of women. Like he just traps people in this. And I'm like, I hate him the most. And then like Joe is like terrible in his own way. But like the reason I feel like they devote an entire episode to Carol Baskin is that I'm like, okay, she's the ultimate cat lady. But she's right about everything, like because they're breeding tiger cubs to show to people and all that.
But the
stuff.
argument they're making is
that
like, she's no better than they are.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, you're liking her a little too much. We're gonna devote an entire episode to tearing her down, and I'm like, okay, well, I mean, fair. You kind of change the tone to make this serial in the middle of this tiger thing. So just kind of like, I don't know. It's a good entertaining thing, and I think people would enjoy it. But it is one of the, and like, especially for, I think it's mostly like, see how bad these tigers have it is more what I take away. But it's also like, these people are also entertaining and weirdos. So, but everybody's been talking about that.
I watched a couple of episodes of it and I was like, I get the point. And I stopped.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. We kept watching to see how crazy it goes. But Let's go on to games. What games have you been playing?
Games I've been playing.
I think you've probably played more games.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't been playing a lot. At the beginning of...
You're more of a gamer boy.
I'm a gamer boy. I said, see you later, boy. So at the beginning of quarantine, I finally went back and beat and platinumed God of War. I had been meaning to do that for a while. I had already beat God of War, but I re-beat it and because I wanted to get the platinum. And I kept telling myself, like, I'm not that far away. I'm just going to go do it. It was a matter of, like, going around and getting the collectibles. But it's one of my favorite games ever. And, like, replaying it was just really satisfying. And it was, like, just what I was looking for.
Still on my list.
Yeah. I mean, it's top 3 games ever for me. Like, it's really, really up there. Wow. Yeah. So you have time, go play that game. And it's not that challenging of a platinum. It took me like a couple extra hours after having beaten it to go and get the platinum. But the first playthrough that I did, I went and like sort of did all of the combat trials that are associated to trophies. And there were like a bunch of those, so I didn't have to go do those the second time. What's one from your list? We can alternate here.
Okay. I have 5 in my list. 3 of them I feel like I have like they're just short-ish kind of
Okay,
things.
so give me 2 of those.
I played Wizard of Legend with Annie a little bit, which is a co-op game, but it was only local co-op, but Steam has a feature where you can play a game that is only local co-op over the internet. Okay. It's like couch co-op kind of. It's like a interesting, and it actually worked pretty well for this game. But like it starts in your wizards in a museum. And you get like elemental magic, and the gameplay's like super fast and fluid and really cool. And I'm like, this is hype. Like, this is a cool game. And then it goes into it, and I'm just like, wait a second. Is this a roguelike? God damn it. Roguelike. And I was just like, I got pissed off because I was like, they set it up so cool and like this, like building up this, like you're going through a museum of wizardry. And I'm like, that's neat. And then they're like, oh, you get teleported back and you got to do this tournament now. And I'm like, oh, I mean, the gameplay's still fun, and it would probably be fun to, but like,
roguelike,
it kind of ruined it for me.
Roguelite where you get like upgraded abilities and stuff every death?
Oh, roguelite, because you get coins and stuff, and you get like more magical abilities, which like it's fun. Like you get like waterbendery kind of skills, and you just get better magic and skills. And so it's fun, but it doesn't. I thought it was going to hook me with a cool story, and then it just didn't, and so it fell flat. And then there's Katana Zero, which is also a pixel art game, but it's like a short kind of like one hit kind of kill game with like a slow-mo mechanic, and it's like a 2D platformer. It feels kind of like Hotline Miami. I don't know if you ever played Hotline Miami. But it's like it has a cool story of like you're an assassin named the Dragon, and you go on missions, and you're like you go to a therapist after everything, and he injects you with a thing. And he also gives you a dossier, and that's the next person you're going to kill. So it's like, oh, that's a neat kind of thing of like your therapist is also your handler. And there's like in between things like Hotline Miami, where like the story comes in, and then the gameplay is just like fun and flashy. So it's a good game.
Cool. Let's see, what's another one from my list? I played a little bit of Baba Is You.
I heard that
it's
one.
It's good. I mean, I can only take it in really small doses because it requires your full like mental attention. Like it's the farthest thing from like Animal Crossing, where like you like I was like, oh, I'll turn on a TV show and I'll play Baba Is You, and it's like, no, I have to turn off everything and I have to just think about these puzzles. So it's really really mind bendy. I mean, it's definitely like, yeah, it's like a bite-sized game where it works really well to sit down and do a couple puzzles and put it down and come back later. So pretty cool mechanically. And I mean, it deserves the awards and everything that it got. Everyone was like, I heard the reviews of people being like, I didn't know this was something that video games could even do, stuff like this. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely clever and definitely well engineered, but I could see how you do it. It's like,
yeah. I feel like people who say that don't know how to, or don't know anything about making games.
Yeah, I mean,
when they're like, I don't.
Where you're just like, this is
know how you do it. It's like,
yeah. Another thing I've been doing is playing board games on Tabletop Simulator. Specifically, I've been playing. So I play a lot of Gloomhaven at work, which is like D&D in a box, and they're kickstarting the sequel to it called Frosthaven. And one of the things they did was release the first like 5 scenarios of Frosthaven with new characters on Tabletop Simulator for people to just like try and play. So I played that with some of my friends, and it's really good. I mean, unsurprisingly, it's more Gloomhaven with new mechanics and like more content, and it's really, really fun. And I'm really impressed by how well Tabletop Simulator works. You know, it's like
I haven't tried it yet.
It is most definitely not my preferred medium to play board games, but it's a very good way to just like play board games with friends,
especially in quarantine. I mean, it's I've also been playing a lot of like RPGs with people. I'm playing like a pirate one that's my brother pitched it as Wind Waker, but with witches on like islands. But then we haven't seen a lot of witches. But it's also kind of like Star Trek-y in terms of you have like a boarding party or like you would go to islands and do stuff. And my character is a goblin divination wizard named Madam Bones, who's just the seer of the. And she just is a witch because she's just a little green goblin lady. So that's been fun. And then I've been DMing a game called Things from the Flood, which is based off of Tales from the Loop, which is like a series of books from Simon Stålberg or something like that. He's Swedish, and they actually made a Amazon Prime show based on Tales from I think it's Tales from the Loop. Sorry,
actually, I saw an ad for that.
So that's like the vibe of those pictures. If you haven't like seen the pictures, just look up like Simon Stålberg like 80s or like Tales from the Loop. Because I have 2 rule books. One is like 80s and you play as kids and you're just in this area around a particle accelerator in Sweden. Or you can do the US version, which is like a particle accelerator in Nevada. And then there's Things from the Flood, which is in the 90s and you play as teenagers and it's more horror themes. And so I was like, hey, do you want to do this to my D&D party? And we played it a little bit and they've been really liking it, even though it's very like... It's a different vibe because it's half of it is like doing teenager stuff, and then you balance that out with just like gross horror of like machines and like because there's like a thing of like robots are starting to get like tumors and stuff like fleshy parts, and it's called like machine cancer, and it's just like weird stuff happens around, and so it's been a weird vibe, and we haven't played it for a bit. And I don't know how my players feel about it because my girlfriend's like, I love this. This is so good. And then I'm like, I don't know, because it's hard to make it goofy because that's kind of my style when I DM is it's like, hey, let's make this goofy. And this is like, oh, you go into an underground cavern and you just hear like screaming. And it's like, oh, that's really make this, like, not goofy. Good. Yeah. For back to like just games I've been playing, Totally Accurate Battle Simulator was in a Humble Bundle I bought, and it's just a fun, goofy, like you set up an army of dudes and then they just like auto fight each other and they're all wiggly men.
Right.
So it's like a fun thing to see a mammoth kill a bunch of hobbits. It's just like a fun little game. I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2 for the last 2 years or whatever at this point.
Go back to our very first episode and you probably said that same sentence.
And I'm still probably playing, and I'm at the point where I've gotten farther, and it's a fun game. I like it, and it actually is I was thinking about this because the next, I don't know if you want to do a game between this, but it does relate to my next game, which is Animal Crossing.
Sure, I mean, go for it.
I've been playing a lot of
with my last game, but yeah, go ahead.
Because Red Dead and Animal Crossing, I feel like have a lot of similar mechanics if you think about it. Especially with the camp mechanic for Red Dead, where you go around and talk to people. Because I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing New Horizon. I play like an hour a day or whatever because Animal Crossing is interesting because it's like a mobile game kind of in terms of you have to go to it every day and get resources and like talk to your neighbors and do all these things to get miles so that you can go to different islands, do other things. And it's just so customizable and just so relaxing, especially when I watch like Star Trek and stuff. I'll just play that. And then Red Dead feels like it has all those things, but also a lot more. And yet I don't feel as fulfilled by Red Dead in some situations.
Well, Red Dead feels more like
they're like
it's more like
vibes.
You're checking boxes, and it feels like Animal Crossing is more like you're playing in the sand and like seeing what you can come up with. Like Red Dead, while it has a lot, only has like little. When I was playing it, I only had like little moments where I felt like I truly discovered something. Like And those moments were great. Like, they were awesome. And I was like, holy shit, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. But they were really few and far between.
I think I texted you, like, the missions in Red Dead 2 feel like almost every single main mission feels like it would be the best mission in any other kind of game. Because there's, like, a mission where you got to go on a heist and you end up, like, taking over a trolley and, like, going through town and shooting dudes. And it just feels like it's super cool. But I feel like Red Dead, it's so weird that they put so much of an emphasis on immersion and all that stuff and, like, had so much feature creep to me of just things that don't, like, I think the quintessential thing is the ball shrinkage for the horses in cold weather. It's such a superfluous thing, and it's just a thing that you could put on, like, oh, we did this technology when it doesn't affect anything. So they put all that effort into that, and yet all the gameplay, like, running and sneaking and shooting feels very clunky sometimes.
There are legacy things with Rockstar games where it's like tapping X to sprint is no longer a good function. Like, you all need to get over it. I think we may have talked about this when I was going through and playing Red Dead, and it's just I mean, there's a lot to love and a lot not to love in that game, and I don't think it's making anybody's, like, top 10 of this generation's list, which I think is what they were hoping for.
I don't know. I think people very much I think people really loved it. I think it just didn't. It pushed technologies in terms of visuals and, like, but it didn't push open world gaming.
Yeah.
It didn't do anything mechanically other than that kind of, like, oh, you can feed your horse and stroke your horse and ball shrinkage stuff, like graphics, things that are cool. But a lot of gameplay stuff didn't, like, the fact that you have to cock your gun every time is just an annoyance to me, and I end up just mashing right trigger.
Oh yeah, I mean,
instead of, because you got to, like, with a revolver, it's like, and then you got to cock it again by pressing the button again. I'm like, this just feels like you should have gotten rid of it in game testing. So I know the development of the game was kind of, like, rushed, but and then Animal Crossing is just like everybody's talking about it. Everybody has already maxed out their stuff and have, like, beautiful islands, and I'm like, okay, so y'all cheated. I know you pushed the clock. Like, what are you doing? Yep. Because there's no way that you can get all that money. Like, I'm still plugging away on Tom Nook, trying to get my last thing in. But I have, like, a seance room in my house, and I love my little villagers, even though one of them is a hippo lady, and she calls me hipster, is her little catchphrase for me. So don't love that. Do love my little, I have 2 koalas, one named Sydney and one named Ozzy.
There you go.
And one of them calls me Old Bear, and the other calls me Sunshine.
There you go.
And I love them. They're my adorable. And Ozzy's a little weirdo boy, and he's just like I talked to him a little bit, and he's just like, "Hey, not to be rude, but I just want to be alone right now." And I was just like, "Oh my god,
relatable content."
I feel that relatable content. I'm like, Ozzy, and then he'll, like, run around with his arms like a plane. He's like, and I'm like, I love you. You're my boy.
Oh god,
it's just like it's just my boys, my boys and girls they're my little group, and I love them. But that's Animal Crossing. So what's
my
your
last game is Astrobot. I finally went and finished the game, Astrobot Rescue Mission, and finished the game and got the platinum, which is a VR game.
Which is your favorite VR game?
Not only my favorite VR game, but, like, I think it might be the best designed platformer ever. I mean, I think that
really platform. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I mean, it takes away the fourth wall in such an incredible way that no other game does, VR or otherwise. That I'm just like, people that like platformers that haven't played this game are missing out. And I hope that this game, when VR is widespread, which I think is to some degree an eventuality, I really hope that this game gets, like, ported everywhere and everyone can play it, because the design on this game is so good. It's like you're living in a Pixar movie with this game. It's incredible, and, like, the enemies are cute and the bosses are challenging but not too challenging and have personality, and all of the levels feel really unique. The audio design is incredible. The way that the levels are designed around you and for you to, like, exist and move through and be a part of is really cool. It's just it's all of the level design is really interesting because all of the levels exist in a straight line, and as you walk your character forward, and you'll sort of walk him up and around, but eventually you're moving it forward. So you move from point A to point B, and you move along that line in every single level, and you never think about it. You never think about it because you are just surrounded by all of this action and stuff that you forget that you're just on this linear track that just goes from point A to point B, and that's the level. It's like, you're standing at one end of a Mario level, and he's running along and hitting blocks and stuff, and eventually you get to the flag. but you're traveling that flag with him on that axis. It's really, really good, and I hope more people get a chance to play it because it's phenomenal.
I feel like VR is it's still niche, and I feel like it's going to be niche for...
Yeah, it's going to be niche for a while for sure. I mean,
future.
There are things where people have to figure out how to use VR, and this is one of the games that has really figured it out, where it's like, the point of this is not like, high action motion and you're moving around a lot and like, you're trying to do all these epic things. It's more about like, you're existing in this super awesome world and you can be part of the action without having to move around and feel nauseated a lot.
Because right now I feel like there's the games that I'm most excited about and were most interested in when I had VR, when we had an Oculus Rift for a little bit, was like, I would be really into Half-Life Alyx right now. And I really enjoyed, what was it called? Robo Recall. Yeah. And Beat Saber was also great. And then like, I would have been really interested in like Boneworks and stuff, but that's like shooters with kind of weird traversal. I think and kind of like being able to interact with stuff. And I feel like I'm not sure if that's like I think we're almost going to hit. I feel like Half-Life Alyx is probably like what people are saying the limit is on that right now. And I'm more interested in what else you could do, because like we made a VR game, Lost in Spice, get it now, it's free. And it's like a cooking game. But I'm like, what can you do with VR?
So this is one of the interesting games
that's
where
really
it's
going
like
to push it.
The design choice to not have you be the main point of like the focal attention is really interesting. Where like you're controlling this little.
You're an observer to the protagonist as opposed to being the protagonist.
You both exist in the space and are controlling the main little robot that's running around. Like you exist in the space because you can like, your character can like headbutt things to like smash them or like reach out and like grab things, but the main point is that you've got your controller and you're like running this little guy around and he's doing the majority of the stuff. And that's just like super cool. I think that's an awesome use of VR.
I think that AI could probably make it more, because right now I feel like there's a certain cognitive dissonance to, because like I've seen clips of people playing Half-Life Alyx and like there's, when you're trapped in an elevator or something in Combine, have their guns trained on you and people are like flipping them off and just kind of like dancing and stuff, and they don't react. And it kind of feels like, oh, okay, well, it would be interesting if they actually kind of reacted to what you did, as opposed to just kind of, I mean, that's like part of the fun and humor of it. But it's also, it's like, how can you make an interesting game that's completely based off your emotions?
Right. Yeah, that's still to come.
I mean, people are still discussing that, but we've spent, I think, 52 minutes.
I think that's going to be just our episode.
I did have other content.
This is our episode to figure out if this works. It seems like it does. Our virtual recording.
I mean, I enjoyed
get
talking to you about
our
your
chest our weekly updates, because we've had many weeks without updating each other about what we've been watching and playing and doing, and so this has been our update episode.
This is our what are we going to
how are the boys doing?
How the boys doing? Or it could just be quarantine binge catch up. Right. I don't know. But thank you everybody for hanging in with us as we talked about all the shows and movies and games that we've been watching. I hope you've been enjoying your time in quarantine. A lot of people seem to not be enjoying it. But hopefully this will be over soon. But if it's not, just remember to always wash your hands, keep inside, quarantine yourself, and listen to our podcast. Yeah.
What else are you doing?
Listen to our podcast.
What else are you doing?
What else am I doing? I'm listening to Create Loud by Rachel Robinson.
Oh my God, he just boomed us. He boomed us.
Because she did our theme song. She did, and it's pretty great. I gotta say, everybody, it's a pretty great theme song. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Theo.
Thank you, Will,
for spending your night.
Find us on Twitter at Segment City. Send us an email, segmentcity@gmail.com.
Text people, the boys are back.
Tell them the boys are back. Throw us a comment.
We're off for a week or two.
And the boys are back in town, and we're coming for your horses, because you're not out guarding them. You're inside.
Oh.
And we're coming for them.
Yep. So we're going to steal your horses? We're going to just... Honey, do you hear the horses neighing? And it sounds like somebody's in the barn.
It's those damn boys, the rustlers.
The boys, those segment city boys.
When they said they were back, I didn't think they were back like here back.
They're back. They're back and they're here for our horses again. They do this every time.
Boys, get them out of here.
Oh, and then we dead. And that's the end of the podcast.
That's it. We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Bye.